Matthew 24, let's start at verse 3. It says, now as the son of as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be? Disciples are asking Jesus these questions. And what will be, one, the sign of your coming, and two, the end of the age? So they're asking Jesus this in verse 4. It says, and Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no one what deceives you. That's one of the ways that we are going to endure. And we'll get into that, some of the key points we want to talk about in terms of how we are to endure. Verse 5 says, for so many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. I'm not saying if, will deceive many. Verse 6 says, and you will hear of wars. Now get the picture of what he's talking about, because these are the things that we are seeing. You will hear wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Where we are now, it's not the end. Verse 7 says, for nation will rise against nation. We're seeing that, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. We have witnessed all of this. The interesting thing is that verse 8 says, all these things are what? The beginning of sorrows. Mm-hmm. So there's a distinction between the end and the beginning of sorrows. And quite honestly, the beginning of sorrows, I believe, has been happening for a number of years now. But we're seeing now more. I think it's just intensifying more now. But we've been in the beginning of sorrows for a number of years now. And so that's the depiction in terms of us identifying the end and Jesus' return. But let's talk about what the end is. So he's saying that it's not the end. We're in the beginning of sorrows. The end, let's talk about that. It says, now we're going to go to Matthew 24. Keep reading 9 through 13. For we are in the beginning of sorrows, as Jesus said in verse 8, not the end, because Jesus makes it clear in verse 6, but the end is not yet. So what is the end? Matthew 24, 9 to 13, it says, verse 9 says, then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. Verse 10 says, and then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures, here's our verse, but he who endures to the end shall be saved. Verse 14 says, here it is, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. So we've seen glimpses, but we have not seen this type. Now there are things happening around the world, not just in America. I'm just talking, when I think worldwide, because we have to think in terms of the entire world, not just the nation that we are living in. And so I think there's that distinction to make sure that we know that we are in the beginning of sorrows, which has begun. It's all a part of the end time signs, but it is not the end. And so that's a distinction we need to make for that. Now let's talk about real quickly Jesus' return and what that looks like, because what the disciples asked him is what is the sign of your coming and also the end. So let's go to Matthew 24 again. And there's parts of this, I really encourage people to just really dive into studying Matthew 24, because it gives us a lot of ways that we can understand more so about what's happening and what's coming. And so Matthew 24, let's do 36 to 43, I think. Yeah. So, and this is going to lead up to telling us about Jesus' return, because I'll get into the scripture. It says, but of this day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of man be. Now we'll stop and put a pin there because there are signs, things that happened in Noah's day that are taking place and have been taking place. Verse 38 says, "For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark." 39 says, "And did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be." Verse 40 says, "Then two men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left." 41 says, "Two women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left." Verse 42 says, "Watch therefore, watchmen, arise." Come on, watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. This takes me back to, we're hearing a lot about the 10 virgins and how significant that is. It says, "Watch therefore for the hour when your Lord is coming." Verse 43 says, "But know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." So no one knows the hour. Jesus doesn't even know the hour. He says in the scripture that only his Father in heaven knows the hour that he is coming back. And so it's important for us to know the time we're in, the time where, now, mind you, it's all a part of the end times, but it's similar to, say, for instance, if you were going to college, you go to the first semester and then you literally leave, but it's not over. You're going back because it's a part of the entire program. Having a part of the entire, what I call the epic of the era, the end time era, end times, there are parts of it, but it's not the end yet. So I think it's important to make that distinction.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, when I was looking at Matthew 24, there's a Greek word, it's called parousia. And what it means is that it helps us to prevent having a premature excitement about the coming of Christ. And the reason that is because the end times technically began on the day of Pentecost. And so we're really in a time of basically Jesus when he ascended and his second coming. And so we need to know how we need to endure during this time, which is between his ascension and him coming back again. And so even though we are excited about the fact that he is coming back, like you said, we don't know when he's coming back. And so therefore, because we don't know when he's coming back, it is incumbent upon us. It is our responsibility to ensure that we are ready.
Absolutely. We have to be ready. And it's, I don't know if it's, it's, I don't know if it's cliquey or cliche in terms of Christendom, but, no, it's not, because the word tells us to be always ready. I mean, Paul talks about that, to be always ready. But also to live as if this was your last day.